In the year 1850, Horton was incorporated as a township. 8 years later, 4.93 square miles of land was separated to create Renfrewville, and John Smith was elected the first reeve. It proved to be a corporate success, and in 2008, the town of Renfrew celebrated 150 years of incorporation. While filming Now and Again, A Story of Renfrew, I was able to attend the burial of a time capsule which will be opened in 2033. At the end of that year, which played to sold-out audiences at Renfrew's O'Brien Theatre, I promised to make another movie for the celebration of our 175th. It has only been 14 years since Now and Again was released, but that movie took me 32 years to finish, so I thought I should start this one early. The Renfrew Public Library and Heritage Renfrew are great places to begin any historic research. According to its spring 2022 edition of Opeongo Lines, they speak to the fact that the rivers were the first transportation routes. The early buildings near the river would become the stopping places to accommodate other immigrants looking to take up farming or those who would start various businesses. By 1830, the census of the village had reached a mere 21 people, and the rivers were the main route to the mills on the Quebec side. The Bonnechere River watershed encompasses an area of approximately 2,400 square kilometers, a drainage half the size of Prince Edward Island. Approximately 80% of the land in the watershed is privately owned. Whether you call it the Bonnechere or the Bonnechere, the name means good river. The 145-kilometer river attracted First Nations people who may have lived here more than 5,000 years ago. The source of the Bonnechere River is McCaskill Lake in Algonquin Provincial Park, and it empties into the Ottawa River through a provincial wetland. Settlers, fur traders, and lumbermen used the river to transport goods. Gus Hanford, a well-known photographer, took photographs along the river in the early 1920s and 30s. Gus and one of his Hanford studio employees, Miss Thursa Stringer, hand-painted photos that he captured and developed. Wouldn't they love to see how digital photography and videography have brought more vibrancy to photographs today? The river is a year-round playground for outdoor enthusiasts. Snowmobiling, boating, paddling, and angling are just a few of the fun activities. Thanks to the upgrading of the rail trail and its bridges, we can also travel above the river on the over 219-kilometer Algonquin Trail. The route stretches from Smith Falls to near Mattawa and is owned and managed by the County of Renfrew, Lanark County, and the Township of Papineau-Cameron. The four-season multi-use trail on the former CP rail line is a great place to enjoy a breath of fresh air. On the north bank of the river in the town of Renfrew, we are fortunate to have the O'Brien Park, named after the late Senator Michael John O'Brien. Although the old Kingston and Pembroke rail line didn't get past Renfrew, and the rail has since been removed, the old K&P is still a popular transportation route that brings us together year-round. The O'Brien family are well known for investing in business, industry, farming, entertainment, and recreation. Their 1910 hockey team, the Creamery Kings, was given the name Renfrew Millionaires by journalists of the day. They wrote about the team being world champions after they soundly beat the Montreal Wanderers, who had just won the Stanley Cup. The O'Briens formed the National Hockey Association, which morphed into the National Hockey League, which sports fans know well today. You will see the name O'Brien in many places in Renfrew, and the O'Brien Park is a grand place for folks to stroll and see excellent entertainment. The well-maintained rolling landscape makes a natural amphitheater and is located adjacent to the McDougall Mill Museum and the swinging bridge. In the early days, getting from one side of the river to the other was a challenge for workers. So in 1895, the Kearney family helped to raise funds by public subscription to build the swinging bridge. The council of the day was against spending tax dollars on a footbridge, citing the long-term costs would be too great. Thanks to the fundraising efforts of those early settlers and continuing tax expenditures, The swinging bridge is a well-traveled tourist attraction and a time-saving route for many. In summer, the McDougall Mill Museum is a cool place to see interesting artifacts and learn about local history. Volunteers and paid summer students give their time and efforts to maintaining this vast collection. During one annual general meeting, celebrated author and public speaker Mary Cook entertained members and guests with a delightful story about an ice scraper.
It's shiny inside, and it has a serrated edge. What's it for? Only one of us grew up on a farm. You don't know what an ice house is? An ice house. And it was always built on the north side of the barn. Why? No sun.
According to its website, the 1855 McDougall Mill Museum is itself Renfrew's most prized artifact and has garnered much prominence. Constructed by fur trader and Hudson Bay Company agent John Lorne McDougall, this beautiful stone building was originally used as a grist mill. It was then renovated and reopened as the McDougall Mill Museum in 1969. Though the majority of the artifacts celebrate local history, there are also exhibit items donated by local Indigenous communities and from international locales. There are 3 other parks north of the Bonnechere. The meandering river flows beside the Royal Canadian Air Force Park, which is owned and maintained by the town. Each November, you are sure to see RCAF members and cadets honoring veterans at this park. The old diving pier is a popular fishing spot, a great place to launch a kayak or just to fly a kite. In winter, cross-country skiing, snowshoeing, and sliding bring excitement and vigor to outdoor enthusiasts. At Forgy Park, we honor John L. Forgy, who once owned a chicken hatchery and cement company. He was well known for his horticultural contributions throughout the community. Today, the family business, Forgy's Concrete Products, the oldest business in this commercial district, continues to operate at its original location on Arthur Avenue, while Forgy Park has undergone major change during the recent construction. Victoria Park was donated to us by Sir Francis Hincks, who in 1864 came to the town of Renfrew and purchased land along the Bonnechere. He was a banker, journalist, politician, and a British colonial administrator. Although he had many titles and duties during his time, he was member of the Legislative Assembly of the Province of Canada, in office during 1854-55. As a reformer, pre-Confederation, his constituency was Renfrew County, Canada West. Hincks became the Minister of Finance under Canada's first Prime Minister, Sir John A. Macdonald. From 1869 to 1872, he went about the business of regulating the banks and currency of the country as a Liberal Conservative representative for the riding of Renfrew North. In 1825, the current site of Renfrew Power Generation was identified as a prime source of water power. 1902 saw the construction of Renfrew Power Corporation's dam and the lower plant, housing 2 power generation units. Electricity was supplied to light homes, businesses, and the town streets. 1899 saw Thomas Lowe buy property downstream between Mutual Street and the river, including the water rights, as part of a plan to use water power to generate electricity for the town. Thomas Lowe and others formed the Renfrew Power Company.
Well, these are actually the generators. The one closest to us is generator 7, the far one generator 6. They each can do 2 megawatts of power each when they're fully loaded up. The shaft runs through the center, the turbine's down on the next level. These are called Kaplan units, vertical Kaplan units, which are different from the ones we have here, the existing. They're called Francis horizontal. These screens, alarms, water level trends, you know, wind here, you get it all fancy with all the settings. Basically what it's producing right now, which is 1300 kilowatts. This is the high voltage side, so this is actually the output from the generators. These are called breakers, so there's one for each unit plus a main breaker, similar to the one in your house. So this actually connects us to Renfrew, the town of Renfrew's hydro system.
In 1901, the Renfrew Power Company issued a contract for construction of a dam and a generator house. This original building is still generating power today. In 1911-12, the upper plant was built to house another electrical generation station and a pump house for the waterworks. This was done partly because the drought in 1908 greatly reduced the flow of water in the Bonnechere River. Fortunately, the original steam-driven turbines kept as backup, provided the power needed during the dry spell. Lowe's Renfrew Power Company was eventually sold to the town of Renfrew in 1917. Thomas Lowe, at his own expense, had the old Albion Square at the corner of Raglan and Railway Streets made into a park in 1918. Council named it Lowe Square. The Honourable Thomas Lowe served as Minister of Trade and Commerce from 1923 through 1925. With Town Council's approval, Lowe's final gift to the town was the Soldiers' Memorial Cenotaph, unveiled in 1931, to honor the men from Renfrew and area who died fighting for peace during World War I. Thomas Lowe died at the age of 59 in 1931, before the unveiling of his generous gift. Charlotte Whitten, born in Renfrew 1896 through 1975, was the private secretary for the Honourable Thomas Lowe, and in 1922 became the founding director of the Canada Council of Child Welfare. She had a reputation as being one of the fastest skaters to don a pair of ice skates. She was happy to wear a hard hat as the Mayor of Ottawa and is honoured with a display at the McDougall Mill Museum. She is buried at the Thompsonville Cemetery. The beautifully designed and well-constructed Thomas Lowe home was surrounded by lovely gardens. The home went on to become the White House Hotel, which was sold and subsequently torn down. Today, it is a popular place for excellent meals, thirst-quenching refreshments, and good conversation, with Wendy's and Tim Hortons sharing the property. Renfrew Hydro Incorporated is well managed by a board of directors with proxy voting by members of the town. Where once the members of the Renfrew Hydro Commission were elected by the community, today Renfrew Hydro Inc. and Renfrew Power Generation board members are appointed. Management and skilled employees are keeping up with the increasing demand for hydro and making necessary upgrades for the growing electric car era. The town of Renfrew generates approximately 30% of its required electricity. All of the electricity generated is from renewable green sources such as water and solar. This positions our town very well for a decarbonized future to combat the climate challenge that has people from all nations working together. Renfrew Power Generation was formed in 2000 as a result of Bill 35, the Green Energy Act. Ontario's decision to create a competitive electricity market required municipally owned facilities such as Renfrew Hydroelectric Commission to separate the generation function from the distribution function and form two new for-profit companies, Renfrew Power Generation and Renfrew Hydro Inc. The corporation of the town of Renfrew is the sole shareholder of both companies, owning 100% of the shares. The increased efficiency will produce 50% more power using the same volume of water. Power produced by RPG helps to keep power rates down because it's energy that doesn't have to be supplied by Hydro One to Renfrew Hydro Inc., a process that incurs a delivery charge. Renfrew Hydro Inc. delivers power to over 4,350 residences and businesses. Repairs have been done to the upper dam and 4 sluiceways. A team of skilled laborers repaired the inner and outer walls of the existing canal, adding new retaining walls on both sides of the intake that diverts water from the river to the canal. The current work will finish the rehabilitation of the dam. The first phase was completed with the Thomas Lowe Station. To dewater the repair area, a cofferdam was installed first, and the old, deteriorated concrete was removed and replaced. RPG is also installing a new spillway gate to make water management more efficient and reliable. Currently, we rely on a 1900s log hoist to remove logs, which is labor intensive, and there isn't a backup.
Take a router and we router the edges, and then we cut the shape for the pocket, and then we hammer them on.
And that's all metal.
It's all
And
metal.
then once it's in there, there's no way it's going to move anywhere at
Well,
all.
it's unlike these ones here, it's just a metal that they bolted on the top. We pulled that out fairly easy on the bottom ones. So we had to tong those to get them out. It's not the safest way to do it.
No.
So now those ones there, like if you break the pocket, like the log's pretty well done.
Protection of the town of Renfrew's water supply is a priority as RPG also maintains continuous flows to ensure treated wastewater from the town of Renfrew's wastewater treatment plant is adequately mixed when they are returned to the river. There have been and are many people who work to build a successful future for the town of Renfrew, its residents and visitors. If early settlers could see what is happening on the riverbanks today, they would be more than impressed. The water filtration plant has been updated and the pollution control plant is state-of-the-art with plenty of capacity to grow the community. These facilities are in the very capable hands of the Ontario Clean Water Agency. Bishop Water Technologies has also done research at this facility, and they are always happy to share their innovative ideas.
Nylon, polyethylene, rayon.
And it just picks up the...
And it's, if you look at it, what it is, you'll see there's two different fibers in this one. This is single, this is single, this is single. There's two different ones in this, two different ones in this, two different ones in this. What they had discovered was they were replicating underwater plants.
Stewart Street was once the Trans-Canada Highway 17 until the Renfrew Bypass opened in 1977. With the construction of the bypass, the section of Highway 17 between O'Brien Road east of Renfrew and Haley Road north of Haley Station was renumbered as an extension of Highway 60, establishing the current route of the highway. Renfrew Town Council awarded the Stewart Street reconstruction project to Thomas Kavanagh Construction Limited. The area of work covered was from the town limit, 1.1 kilometers easterly, to the bridge crossing the river. The work included paving and grading, concrete curb and sidewalks, sanitary sewer installation and relining, storm sewer works, water works, landscaping and streetscaping, traffic signal upgrades, site restoration, and line painting. Multi-use paths for all types of wheels are a welcome addition. Underground water and sewer work began in the fall of 2020, with the balance of the work being completed in 2021. As the work began, I tried to imagine what the original settlers would say if they came back to see what we are creating today. With a $6.5 million price tag, I am sure they would be impressed with the skilled operators and amazing excavation equipment. This well-trained team of strong laborers dug in and worked tirelessly through all kinds of weather and a global pandemic. This was a time that saw small businesses being temporarily shut down by the provincial government on 3 separate occasions in order to reduce the spread of a deadly virus. One day, I asked a dump truck driver where they were taking the earth they were excavating. He said, "Climb in and I'll show you." Always being one to enjoy spontaneous adventure, I grabbed my cameras and did just that. Thomas Kavanagh's Douglas Quarry gravel pit is astounding. It seems to be larger than Douglas itself, and what a sight to behold. Watching how the aggregate was divided into different piles, loading and unloading the truck, made me see that I do not have what it takes to be a truck driver. Everything in the quarry is weighed and measured, and a friendly employee gave us a smile as we drove away. Stewart Street was named to honor Mr. Daniel Watson Stewart and his wife, Mrs. Winona Neer Stewart, who contributed to community in many ways. One notable contribution was the gift of a fully equipped recreation center on Argyle Street. Their Arthur Avenue home has remained in the family since the late 1800s. The North Ward Sunday School was built in the early 1900s. In 1948, a congregational dinner by Trinity St. Andrew's United Church was held in honor of Daniel's 50 years of service as superintendent of the North Ward Sunday School, and the building was named in his honor. Today, Cindy Markey, owner of Personalize It, offers a catalog filled with promotional products, embroidery and silk screening, not to mention some very creative work with metal. Cindy and property owner Jeff Pye continued to maintain and keep the original facade while putting their own personalized touches on the inside of their popular business. Both the North Ward School and Victoria School have long since closed, but the much-needed residential apartments that were constructed in Victoria School are a welcome addition to the area.
So this is an engraving machine that works on what type of material?
So this is a CO2 laser, and it's got two lasers in it. One of them works on steel, and the other one will work on wood. And with the wood one, we can do engraving. With the steel one, we can only do like remove paint off of an ionized aluminum, but we can't do an actual engraving.
But this actually cuts the steel, and then you could make some of those beautiful signs that I just passed in the hallway?
Yes. Yep. So this will cut steel. It can cut as thick as 12 gauge steel, and we can cut signs or like fire pits.
We are fortunate to have Our Lady of Fatima Catholic School, which attracts young families to settle north of the Bonnechere. Its curriculum includes coding technology, which is as important today as reading, writing, engineering, math, and science. Our Lady of Fatima Catholic School is one of the finest anywhere and gets top marks in all categories. It makes a person wonder what education will look like in the future. Whether it's in the classroom or in an online homeschooling environment, these students are happy and eager to learn. There are over 50 businesses and services in the Stewart Street Commercial District, and that number has grown considerably since Mac Mackenzie Motors sold vehicles from this property. They also built a garage across the street, which now houses Doll's Laundry and Convenience Store. A lovely tribute book was created by Mac's granddaughter, Sarah, and you can view the book at their new location in the O'Brien Commercial District. The Rocky Mountain House was built by the grandfather of the current owner, Kim Limlaw, who runs a top-notch restaurant and pub. As a very industrious business person, Kim took advantage of the forced pandemic shutdowns to refurbish the 30 motel rooms that serve a multitude of tourists and locals. Business people and all who serve deserve a round of applause for surviving the worst flu in over 100 years. During the 2021 global pandemic, the Hebron Community Christian Reformed Church chose to host online services and now offer in-person and online services every Sunday morning. The Renfrew Victoria Hospital first opened in 1897 with 12 beds for contagious disease, and by 1912 the bed capacity had risen to 30 and became a public general hospital. In 1918, a global pandemic is reported to have taken over 50 million lives. One of those souls was Jenny O'Brien, wife of Michael John O'Brien, who had just been named to the Canadian Senate a few days before her passing. According to Scott Young and Astrid Young's story, O'Brien, From Waterboy to 1 Million a Year, both Jenny and Michael John contracted the Spanish flu. They wrote that because there were so many people dying, they stopped tolling the church bells. Caskets were sealed, and services were private, if they were held at all. People were asked to stay home if they could, and there was little medical assistance. Thanks to major improvements in hygiene and vaccines, the COVID-19 death toll was much less, but it still took the lives of over 42,000 Canadians, with over 6 million deaths globally. Thanks to major improvements in hygiene and vaccines, the COVID-19 death toll was much less, but it still took the lives of over 42,000 Canadians, with over 6 million deaths globally. According to internet sources, the Spanish flu pandemic of 1918, the deadliest in history, infected an estimated 500 million people worldwide, about 1/3 of the planet's population. Today, the Health Services Village Board of Directors are able to attract new medical personnel with financial contributions from the townships of Greater Madawaska, Admaston Bromley, Horton, and the Town of Renfrew. The Renfrew Victoria Hospital has a staff of over 450 and is the largest employer in town. The RVH Foundation has helped to raise millions of dollars to purchase modern equipment for the hospital. As well as being known as a friendly community, the state-of-the-art medical equipment attracts a diverse team of medical professionals. During the COVID-19 pandemic that was declared by the World Health Organization March 11, 2020, everyone became more vigilant about their health and hygiene. Writing this story and making it into a movie is my way of saying thank you to those who worked through the pandemic. Life goes on, and planning, building, and rebuilding safe, secure, and vital infrastructure cannot stop. When it comes to long-term care facilities, we are fortunate to have the Bonnechere Manor. This County of Renfrew facility offers 24-hour nursing care for 178 residents and 2 respite or short-term stay beds. Groves Park Lodge is a 96-unit long-term care center located close to the hospital. Residents and guests enjoy plenty of entertainment and social time in Gem Hall. Chartwell, Quail Creek Retirement Residence, has been flourishing in Renfrew since 1990. Terry Lynn Smith accompanied the late Joe Quilty as residents and visitors enjoyed the entertainment. In 2003, the Hospice Board submitted a proposal to the Ministry of Health and Long-Term Care for funding of a 6-bed residential hospice. It would be the first rural residential hospice in Ontario, and everyone was excited when the funding was approved. Limited operational funding was approved, but all capital costs had to be raised by the community, who were happy to help. The board raised $1.3 million to build Hospice Renfrew. There are 3 new medical professional buildings close by, with services too numerous to mention. We have a central communications center and a helipad that sees the more critical patients being airlifted to larger hospitals. According to the 2016 Canadian Census, the town of Renfrew has 8,223 residents, and that can mean a lot of waste. Thanks to our development and works team, residents and businesses are fortunate to have someone to pick up the trash and recycling at the curb or greet you at the Renfrew landfill site. It is a very well-organized site. Since the mid-1950s, the Renfrew landfill site has operated as a waste disposal on Bruce Street, also known as County Road 20. The current plans for this site are to maximize Stage 4 and work towards accessing Stage 5 capacity. There are approximately 20 years left in Stage 4. Renfrew encourages composting, and if you bring your composter receipt to the Development and Works office, they will process the request for a $30 credit and mail you a check. This is another way to reduce waste at the landfill site and extend its life cycle. As of this writing, there is also a pilot project for indoor electric composting that the taxpayers are signing up for. Residents will use the composters for 12 weeks and answer a survey about their experience. Next door to the landfill is the St. Francis Xavier Church graveyard. The history of graveyards in Renfrew is a long and interesting one, or perhaps I should say unsettling. In 1857, 1/2 acre of land was purchased on Lochiel Street for a cemetery. The population continued to grow, and in 1868, land was purchased on the corner of Bruce and Victoria Streets for a new cemetery that was purchased by the Pembroke Diocese. It was used until the 1940s. In 1881, bodies were removed from the Lochiel Street Cemetery to permit the building of St. Francis Xavier, the first Catholic school. By 1906, land was purchased for the present St. Francis Xavier Cemetery, and 2 years later, the first cemetery vault was built. More land was bought in 1909. A new presbytery and cemetery vault was completed by 1920, and M.J. O'Brien contributed much to the drive for funds to cover the construction costs. In 1921, bodies started to be removed from the Bruce Victoria Cemetery and were buried again at the present St. Francis Xavier Cemetery. The municipality helped to finance the transfer until the work was completed in the 1940s. More land was purchased for the cemetery in 1953, and there is now a total of 27.23 acres. Thompsonville Cemetery, in the township of Horton, has created an urn garden for those who wish to be cremated. While doing my research for this movie, Jane Smith and John Steele helped me to find my grandparents' grave. Thanks to the small group of dedicated volunteers who care for this cemetery with physical labor and excellent record-keeping skills, visitors are able to find their way with ease. New provincial policy allowing small businesses to operate from a residence drew this author to set up a barbershop in the Stewart Street Commercial District. Working from home has become the new normal for many, and it appears to be an accepted practice for most. With fluctuating prices, drivers are now paying over $2 Canadian for a litre of regular fuel. The Irving oil business on Stewart Street transitioned to Petro-Canada in July of 2022. They will be offering Ultra 94 octane fuel, which offers a cleaner burn to improve the performance of vehicles. One of my barbershop clients, an esteemed journalist and historian, the late Harry Hinchley, once told me that good health of a community is appreciated more than a low level of taxation, and I agreed. Fresh air, clean water and wastewater facilities rate at the top of our list of priorities when it comes to health. The records indicate that when the first water line was hooked up to the Renfrew Mercury office on June 30th, 1871, many taxpayers were opposed. A plebiscite showed a vote of 230 in favor and 180 opposed to the installation of waterworks. This project was promoted as being one of a kind in all the world. By the time the final vote was taken, more people were in favor of waterworks because a fire had destroyed all the buildings of an entire block. The Town of Renfrew's water treatment plant was originally established in the early 1950s and expanded and upgraded in the early 1970s. This project provided a complete renewal of its existing plant and will allow the town to service the community for many years to come. Policies written and implemented province-wide are living documents that will continue to improve the health and safety of water for generations to come. I am happy to have worked with the council and employees to bring health and safety improvements to our water and wastewater facilities. The Bonnechere River Watershed Project's Board of Directors and volunteers work to promote awareness and inspire stewardship that will help to conserve and restore the watershed through a non-regulatory approach. As a municipal councillor for the Town of Renfrew in the year 2000, it was a pleasure to be appointed to work with this conscientious and forward-thinking Board of Directors. It is 22 years since my first nomination for Town Council, and it was concern for the river that earned me a seat. If we were to grow the community, we would need to build a larger wastewater facility, and that is exactly what we did. It was the river that brought me to write this story and create a movie about it. 3 terms as a municipal councillor have shown me that we are well served and very well cared for in Canada. But each one of us must ensure that our waters are protected and the air we breathe is pure and fresh. The Department of Development and Works is responsible for water and wastewater. Its policies and procedures with respect to quality management are created in accordance with the requirements of the Province of Ontario's Drinking Water Quality Management Standard. The wastewater treatment plant was upgraded from the original facility that was constructed in 1968. The old plant was removed after a new facility was constructed, and it will give Renfrew room to grow and serve us for decades to come. Both the water and wastewater facilities can be managed from a laptop computer and are being monitored around the clock. The river brings life to our community in many ways, and I am thankful not only for those who developed the shores, but to the historians, cartographers, surveyors, and artists who wrote the history and preserved our heritage. The Town of Renfrew's motto is "Let it flourish." With a growing population who have planted their roots and invested their time, energy, and finances, we will continue to flourish for generations to come. What more do we need? It would appear that we need more of the same. A 175th anniversary in a town so well loved that no one goes without. Everyone has a warm bed, under a dry roof, a nutritious meal, education, health and wellness care. What more could I ask? To have this book turned into a movie before we open the time capsule in 2033. Today, I celebrate the builders and the makers, the writers and persuaders who bring fruition to sustainable growth.